Gang's all here. Nate Bauer, Sean Fitz together here on the BWI live show. I'm Thomas Frank Carr, all to preview the summer's most important event. And I mean that both literally and sarcastically, because Lift for Life is an incredibly important event. Lift for Life is an amazing event that helps rare research and disease research to fight the battles that are super hard to win. Lift for Life, the event for us, is a great summer event. We get to go and we get to just kind of hang out and observe and see what's going on with Penn State football. So we're here to preview all of that and your questions here on the BWI Mailbag Show, which goes every Wednesday. Nate with Fitz here. 99% of the submitted questions were about recruiting. I imagine those that are going to be in the thread are also going to be about recruiting because we're in the thick of recruiting season. But guys, that's what's coming up on the show today. What's going on with you, Nate? How are you doing today?
I'm great. Stuff.
You are bleeding summer on screen. You got the white shirt. You're looking great. Looks like you've been out golfing a little bit. We got the real on summer vibes here.
You know, that's very observant of you because I feel like I'm in the middle of summer. It's a good time.
Fitz, you're in the middle of summer, which means a haggard recruiting vibe about you as well. How you hanging in with all the information, all the stuff coming up?
Well, we're doing great. If you check the site on on Tuesday, we had so much content. We had new RPM picks. We had the Ask Around segment, which has quickly become a favorite of mine and Ryan's and a lot of users on our site at bluewhiteillustrated.com, where we can kind of riff and get into a little bit deeper. I mean, we're only going to get so deep on a free podcast. So it's kind of like that, except more deeper information. So definitely check that out. Just so much going up on the site. And June is flipped on its head, man. This used to be a no man's land. Like there used to be nothing here. They certainly changing the recruiting calendar helped. We used to look forward to Lift for Life as a, just kind of like a beacon in the summer to get us to preseason camp. And now it's just like another day. So I'm thankful for that because there's a lot to cover. There's a lot of excitement here in Happy Valley and in looking forward to the 2023 season. And of course it is a recruiting day as well. I see we've already caught in the chat. Happy Tyseer Denmark Day. He's set to announce at 6 p.m. So we'll be waiting out that decision. Stepped away from his commitment to Oregon over the weekend while at Penn State for an official visit. There are dots to be connected there. They're not that hard to do. So I think that we might talk later, T. Frank.
Yeah. We there's a good chance that we'll have something later on this afternoon, which is always, we're 3 minutes in. I try to, have some other stuff happen first, but it's a good point to say, subscribe to Blue White Illustrated here on YouTube and hit the notification button so that when breaking news happens, or so you can join the Monday live show when we go live. Great reason to subscribe, and then it'll show up on your phone. You go, oh, hey, look, they're live. You click, here you are. Just like Old Man Jenkins, just like Tom, who says, good morning. Thanks for everything on the site this weekend. Made a week of being sick not as bad. Tom and I were in the same position this weekend. So lots of great content from everybody, keeping the wheels churning. Get into Lift for Life, though. We've talked about it as kind of this event in the middle of the summer that really what it is for a lot of people is it's either the end of the summer months, previewing the last time we'll be talking to any Penn State football players before fall camp starts. So it's kind of the last event for all of us on the calendar. And it's my favorite because we get to play the looks like game coming up tomorrow. This is the first time we got our chance to look at Chop Robinson last year. It's our first chance that we got to see Hunter Norzad. A lot of new faces last year that we got to observe and say, hey, that guy looks pretty good. Abdul Carter, our first chance to look at Abdul Carter last year during Lift for Life. Man, that guy looks pretty good. So I just want to play looks like game with you guys this year. There's maybe not as many young players specifically. That class of 2022 had a lot in it of players that you had an eye on for the season. But there are players that we need to get our first eyeball glance at. So Fitz, who are you looking for in the looks like game tomorrow? Who do you want to get your eyes on for the first time?
Always look at the freshmen, and I've seen them a couple of times since they've been on campus because they've been popping around during camp. But Dakari Nelson is a big dude, and a big dude in the sense that he looks like he's a safety too. Like he's still got room to fill out if he was going to eventually be a linebacker. So that's definitely one there. Interested to see King Mack. Obviously not as big, but like the reviews on him as an athlete are pretty good so far. Beyond that, you got guys that have been here for a couple of months. You look at the transformation that Tony Rojas has made. Anthony Donka is one of the larger human beings I've ever been around. I've been around a lot of large humans. He's just massive, absolutely massive. Not quite Venga Ione, but he's pretty massive in his own right. So some of those guys that have popped up in the class of 2023 so far, and yeah, we're of course always excited to see Venga because James just can't help tripping over himself to talk about how this kid looks. So no, I mean it's always fun to see the young guys, because when you look at the transformations that guys make, I mean, most of them happen within the first 18 months on campus. So like, you're going to see a guy go all of a sudden just sprint out of the gates and be a different human being than he was when he enrolled. And then it's going to slow down a little bit naturally as you're going to find your natural weight, find your natural strength numbers and things like that. So always excited to see the young guys in Lift for Life. And those are a couple that just come to me off the top of my head.
I'm glad you brought up Vega, because I was looking through some of our photos from Lift for Life last year, and the funny thing is Vega came in big. Like, this is a big person,
yes.
And he looks, I don't want to say twice as big as he is now, but if you could imagine, this player filled out even more since last year. So like, that's what we're talking about, of like these guys that, as Fitz pointed out, like they get on campus, they kind of get into their weight gaining rhythm, and then it's just funny how like all of that seems to keep progressing for certain guys. Nate, who do you have that you're getting your eyes on for the first time that you're curious about? Okay, I want to get a baseline understanding of X.
Yeah, so two small sidebars. The first being that with my physique from this chair, everyone looks like a freak at Life, right? Like there's no distinguishing between all of these guys. They all look ripped. They're massive. It's kind of crazy. From that perspective, I'm not blessed with being tall and or ripped like you guys. But the second is Vega actually was leaving the restaurant that I went to with my family on Saturday night. And you guys know that scene in Independence Day where the spacecraft, it's just like this casting shadow, just like overwhelms.
I wondered where you were going with that.
That was what passing Vega was like in a cramped hallway. But no, I'm looking forward to seeing everybody. I don't know. I think that a guy like Javen is interesting to me, right? Like how do some of these as Fitz said, obviously we're always looking at the freshmen, and not only are we always looking at the freshmen, but the freshmen aren't really participating. They're not competing the same way. They're usually throwing footballs and just kind of hanging out, but you do get to see them. And then I'm also looking to see, kind of how jacked the strongest guys are, right? Is Jordan Vandenberg and Hunter Norzad, are those two guys going to duke it out as, for bench press reps again? Right? Like, what does Kadvion Wallace look like? All of those guys that kind of man the trenches, I would say, are always interesting to me. And we'll see. We'll go from there.
Yeah, the strength competition. The funny thing is, like, a lot of times for me, that is the last thing that I because they have it away from where our general keeping area is, and there's always about 100 football players around those things. But you can go see those things if you want to during Lift for Life. I just am always everywhere else. Mark has a good one in here of, other than true freshmen and redshirt freshmen, it's always Hakeem Beamon. Yeah, where are we on the Hakeem Beamon scale? Because James Franklin made some very promising comments about a week and a half ago about Hakeem Beamon. So that's a good one to put up there. Transfers, I think, are interesting too. Dante Cephas, I don't know that the looks like game is necessarily important with Dante Cephas, but at the same time, like, just getting an idea of what he looks like as a football player, what he looks like as a human walking around. I think that's the number one that comes to mind that you guys haven't mentioned already. Maybe some of the other guys, like, we got to see Landon Tengwall last year. We got to talk to Landon Tengwall. Where's he? How's he doing? Because we didn't get to see a ton of him last football season, and he's a very important player coming into 2023. So, just an update on any of those things. Anything else from Lift for Life that you think is important to mention And I want to make your shout out there. If you feel like donating, you feel like being part of the cure for rare diseases, you can go to, I believe, liveforlife.org. You can check out Drew Aller. Trying to think of the other guys that I've seen posting on social media. You can check out their tweets, their social media pages. They'll have links to where you can donate there as well. But is there anything else you guys are interested in tomorrow that we can preview what we might see over at bluewhiteillustrated.com for people who want to get a preview of that?
Not particularly in terms of that, but we always like to watch the redshirt freshmen, and I just highlighted some here, just going through the list. I mean, Caden Saunders and Tyler Johnson, a couple of guys that you're curious to see after a year in the program, how much bigger they are. Johnson's listed at 195. Like, he was, I think, 170 some at some point. So he's getting bigger there. Caleb Artis, we're going to have this nonstop discord about how big are the defensive tackles. He's a pretty big defensive tackle in Caleb Artis. So I'm curious to see where he's at athletically in the competition. I mean, this is one thing during the year. I mean, I don't want to say the coaches don't care for Live for Life, but it's just a different style of workout than they're used to. It's different expectations than they're used to. So you're going to watch the competition aspect. You're going to watch how these young guys, if they've sort of assimilated to what they need to be college players. Like, there's a certain amount of buy-in that you need, and it's roughly 100%. Are those guys there? I mean, we've seen some guys that have bounced that are just haven't been there in the last couple of years. So get over that first hump as a freshman, as a redshirt freshman, get there. And like, we're still talking about like the guys at the end of their actual freshman year, like Dennis Sutton, like Artis, like Abdul Carter, who we feel like has been here a long, long time, but he's just been on campus for a calendar year. So just looking at those guys and seeing how much difference they can make, not necessarily some of those guys in the 1 to 22 on the roster, but the 22 to 45, it's going to make up a lot of your depth and a lot of your special teams. Yeah,
that's a great point of how strong is that base of players and getting baseline for all of those guys. This is a good time of year to do that. upliftingathletes.org/chapter/Penn-State. So if you want to donate, I'll throw it up here just quickly on the screen because I want to make sure that I correct what I said earlier. So here is the website if you want to go to it, upliftingathletes.org. That's the Penn State chapter of Uplifting Athletes. Okay, so Nate, you spoke to Mike Yursich recently, I believe.
I did.
Your notes over at bluewhiteillustrated.com. Great time to go check it out. I wish I had a deal to tell you about of signing up to Blue White Illustrated, but you guys, if you didn't sign up, you missed it. It was an awesome deal. There will be more in the future, but right now, if you want to sign up, I would still do it. You can go over to bluewhiteillustrated.com and get Nate's thoughts on his conversation with Mike Yursich. So what did you learn? What are some of the nuggets that you want to take away and share with us here?
Yeah, I had both offense and defensive coordinator. I had Manny Diaz as well late last week, and from Yursich, it's interesting. I think that for as much attention is being given to Drew Aller, which is warranted, and of course, right, he's this major cog and major component to the offense that is a bit of an unknown right now for most Penn State fans and certainly the media that follow. For as much as those things are true, Yursich and in conversation, it's like Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. They're it. Like they're the guys. They're the guys on the offense that they are really, really, really going to lean on hard and lean into. And they present things. They present problems that. And Yursich said it. He was like, even in the best call defensively, these are guys who can win the rep, right? Like Singleton can take it 80 yards. Even if you're stacking the box, doing all these different things to try to stifle the running game, it's a component that Penn State can feel supremely confident in, but also understand that it needs to be able to help them. It needs to be able to create the conditions that allow those guys to thrive so that it's not so predictable that they're always going to get the ball in, the most critical moments of a game. So it was a good conversation. I thought that, Yursich he's relaxed a little more, I think, in the summer.
Yeah.
He's an interesting guy. I mean, certainly all three of us can attest to that in our conversations with him. But yeah, it was a productive and an interesting conversation that he had with me.
Somebody asked me this recently, and I know this probably isn't part of your conversation about what the offense. Did you get into like what the offense, his ideas for it this year, this fall, or the characteristics of it, any of those things? Because somebody asked me what is the characteristic of a Mike Yurcich offense, and I said that it's not predictable, that it's not something that you can just pin down to one thing. So, what did you guys talk about in terms of his vision for this fall, or did you get into that?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that was the heart of what we talked about, but he did touch on it. Look, the things that have been important to James Franklin since really 2016 remain very important. And so when you cut through all of the specifics, I guess it boils down to explosive plays, right? Like that's it is getting explosives. It is creating good situations for points first and foremost, obviously, but also, and something that I thought was somewhat interesting was how he framed being okay with complementary football, right? Like when you have a defense that's as good as this one is expected to be, and special teams that are as that have been capable in the past. Obviously, there's some big questions to answer there this offseason. But when you have those different units, you don't have to hit a home run every single time you touch the ball. But at the same time, that's what they're trying to do. That's what the goal is. So yeah, no, it was yeah.
Fitz, when it comes to Mike Yurcich, this kind of his time at Penn State has been really fascinating to me in terms of what they've been able to do year to year. And I guess that's why I was asking Nate about what's in store for this year from your perspective, kind of from the program wide. Is that necessarily the function of the talent or a progress towards something? How do you view kind of the offense heading into 2023, given the importance of some of those critical factors of Drew Aller and the offense and the identity it might take during the season?
I don't think it's anything out of the ordinary. It's putting your best guys in the best position to make those plays. And right now I think he's pretty strongly behind the fact that Nick Singleton and Katron Allen are your best guys, and your offensive line's pretty good, which he hasn't really dealt with, not just at Penn State, some other stops along the way. So I think that he'll find a way to sort of fold that into the rest of getting Drew Aller ready, getting those receivers on the same page. He seemed confident in the receivers in the sense that, yeah, I think they can do it, but I think there's also some hesitance there in terms of what can they do? What are their specialties, and how long is it going to take us to figure out what their specialties are to get those on the same page with Drew Aller? So I just think we're going to see a lot of running. Like, I think that's what it boils down to. Like, I don't want to say keep it between the hashes, but like you've also got some tight ends that you're going to work. Like Theo Johnson, I think, is on the verge of taking a big step. And I think that's really what you look for is this is an offense that, Mike Yurcich, his reputation is spreading the ball around, getting the ball outside and things like that. But if you can bring it back to the football, like it starts in the middle, at the center. And if you can keep it in the hashes and be successful like that, I think you have a lot to work with in the terms of meshing what Ohio State and Michigan are able to do. Totally polar opposites in terms of Ohio State wants to get the ball outside, Marvin Harrison Jr., et cetera, all those freaks that they've come through at wide receiver and spread around and do that. But Michigan's kind of the polar opposite. We saw that last year at the Big House. So I think meshing those two and finding the best balance. And I think the best balance is going to come from what you can get from your running game. And I think that we're going to go back into the same thing probably 40 times before the season, taking as much off of Drew Aller's plate as you can. And that's not, I don't think that's a slight to Drew, but I think it's a situation where he's going to, I think, be very good at some point. You just don't know when that's going to click. Is that going to be 4 games in or 6 games in? And is it going to be too late when it clicks? That's the big question there. So taking all that off of his plate, putting it on the running game, I think is just the way that it goes. And it runs kind of counterintuitive to what he's done over the years in terms of being a guy that you would lean to as a pass heavy guy.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes in game this year because a lot of that was also the formula for 2022. And sometimes I feel like he just can't help himself. He sees a weakness, he wants to attack it in the secondary. But you make a great point as well about the style of Penn State compared to its peers in Ohio State and in Michigan. None of those. Well, maybe Michigan wants to only run the football, but every team wants to have balance. Ohio State really wants to be able to run the football. Last year, that was kind of the thing. It was like, we're going to be a tougher team. And the running game really never fully clicked for them. So they're also searching for that balance as well.
But they also have those guys at wide receiver they've not dropped off. And,
True.
You've got to go there. Like, regardless of who the quarterback is, and the quarterback's been good. The last several cycles of Ohio State quarterbacks have been good. Just leaning to your strengths. And, the offensive line, they're a top five team, top 3 program over the last decade or whatever. But the offensive line has been good. And it's also been, there have been holes. And people don't realize how, generally bad offensive lines are. Like an average offensive line is a good offensive line. So I think that's kind of how you have to, and even when Yurcich was at Ohio State, he dealt with that. So I think that's what you kind of have to feel out, and you typically don't get a chance until the live bullets are flying against those really good defenses, which I don't think Penn State's going to see a really good defense until maybe Iowa, if they get some things retooled by the end of September.
So we'll check in on all of those things later in the summer. This conversation, as Fitz said, is not going anywhere. Of course, check out everything these guys have to say over at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. Quickly, though, I want to make sure we talk about this before we get to anything else, and that is our presenting sponsor of the Blue White Illustrated live show, and that is Rogue Shop. Check out RogueShop.com. Use promo code BWI for 10% off at Rogue Shop. And if you don't know what that is, if you're new to the program here, hi, I'm T. Frank, and I'm going to tell you about weed gummies. That's what That's what RogueShop.com. They are a small craft cannabis company that prioritizes small batch medicine and effective healing properties of those things to help you with your traditional Western medicine. So what I'm trying to say is they're not going to tell you, hey, you've got this serious medical problem, well, buy our products. It's more like, hey, you have this serious medical problem or you have this chronic medical problem. These will help you manage those pain, that the inflammation, whatever it is that you're fighting through. This will help you to get through all of those things. So check out RogueShop.com to help you live a better life. They have CBD, THC, Delta 9, Delta 8, and a bunch of other things that you can check out. They have a bunch of, and also, however you're interested in ingesting them, they can help you find the way that you're most comfortable with if you're new to this stuff. So just, here's the thing. Like, even it probably sounds like this during this particular promo read, my brain right now is a fried egg. I had a fever for 3 days straight, so I don't know that I've said anything coherent in 5 days. One thing that helped me get through it was the Delta, the Rogue Shop CBD oil, which helps you reduce inflammation, help keep my brain from becoming an over easy egg and maybe just a little bit toasted, a little bit fried. So check them out over at RogueShop.com. Use the promo code BWI for 10% off. Help you get through things like, I don't know, a random attack of COVID in the summer. All that stuff can help you, again, live a better life. So let's get to the next thing, guys. And we are going to skip right to one of my favorite segments that we do here on the show. That is the BWI Mailbag. BWI Mailbag is open. Of course, if you've got a question, we're going to do a little bit of an extended mailbag here. I've got a good number of questions from the Blue White Illustrated message board on the Lions Den forum. So if you want to, we're going to get into those questions. But if you've got a question, throw it in the chat. We want to talk to you live here on the show as well. So Old Man Jenkins, he's leading us off here. He says, Nate, got a non-recruiting stadium question for you. Why didn't Penn State do a flyover at the whiteout game? Would be sweet. I assume there's no military base close enough, which is why. But do you have any insight why Penn State does not have a B-52 bomber flying over during the whiteout game to take the spectacle to the next level?
I mean, there have been flyovers in the past, haven't there?
Mm-hmm.
I vaguely recall maybe the
Stripe Out game last year had one. I don't know if it got canceled, but Aren't most whiteout games at night? Like, isn't that kind of the reason we don't have a flyover?
Yeah, but not anymore.
Okay.
Well,
but the stripe
I
out
guess
game,
that's not even true.
The stripe out game last year was the Ohio State game, and that was the last one I found a flyover for in terms of the
when
they
when they bring the flag out into the end zone, the north end zone, that's the game where there's the flyover.
Like Military Appreciation Day.
I think so.
I'm legitimately reading a release last year prior to the Ohio State game. So
where
I'm at with that. That was my research in this thing.
Somebody's bringing something to the table.
Sorry, old man Jenkins. I'm not sure, but I like flyover. The Rose Bowl flyovers will never be beaten. They're always the best flyovers.
Even last year when they had to pivot to a substitute flyover, it was still a great flyover. Yeah,
it's the best.
Yeah, and that's during the day too. So
so you can see it. Yeah.
So Med2659 says, "Love the show, guys. Here's his looks like guy that we didn't bring up. Kadvion Key. Seeing recent pictures of him, he looks bigger than 195 pounds listed on the roster. So he's a looks like guy that we'll be looking at tomorrow. I don't know if I would guarantee like 210, 215 in the in the looks like game here. Fitz, is there anything you want to add here? Can we move on to another question comment?
I don't have anything on his weight. I mean, he was 190, I think, when he came in for a visit this offseason. So like I mean, he does look bigger than that. He's jacked up, like, let's be honest. So he's going to get bigger, and he's probably already started getting bigger. It was really funny. I was standing behind Carmelo Taylor at camp over the weekend, and he's got, they go and they get these shakes from the nutrition bar in there. And I was there for 5 minutes, and 3 people, including James Franklin, were like, there better be protein in that shake. Like you better be just like mainlining protein. And because he is pretty skinny. But yes, they pack it on when these guys get there. They get there and they get into workouts that they're not used to. They put their bodies and muscles through just things that break them down like they have never done before. And then they, throw them the heavy, the saturated chocolate milk, the heavy shakes and things like that. And it's not hard to put on weight if your body responds correctly. It's not hard to put on weight very fast. We saw that with Tony Rojas. He put on 30. Yes, Nate. They're not drinking High Noon peaches, but it's
those Dr. Pete's work. I can guarantee you. I gained 20 pounds one winter when I was lifting and going there and buying like 15 Dr. Pete's, and I don't have a big frame to add on. Those things really work. So Nate, if you're looking for it, Dr. Pete's is what you need.
Yeah, we don't need to go up. Anyway, go ahead.
Anyway. Yeah, but no, I think, he's gonna get bigger. He's gonna be one of those guys that I think not blows up right away, but like I would not be shocked to see him at 215 in no time.
Here's a question I want to start from our pre-selected ones. I like this question a lot because it's usually we're talking about younger guys and who's going to be the next guy to step up, but even good football players need to get better. So Master Hefe asks, what are some of the things you hope our star players, Penn State star players, improve on? Guys like Nick Singleton, Abdul Carter, Olu Fashanu. Nate, is there something that you've identified in your guy Nick Singleton that you would like to see him do this year to take himself from a star player to a superstar player?
Yeah, he has to catch the ball, and he said it. So there's no real mystery there as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I think that certainly some of the finer nuances that I conveniently ignore, like pass protection, are things that he could improve upon. His understanding of the game has never been. It's not right. Like that was one of the differentiating factors between him and Katron last year. It's like Katron came and he knew how to play running back. Yep. Nick came and knew how to be an awesome athlete who just scores touchdowns, right? So I think that picking up some of those things are important for him, but that's not sexy. And what is sexy is catching touchdowns, right? Like him getting the ball in space through avenues that were not necessarily available to him previously, or drop passes. How many drops did he actually have last year? I don't think it was that many, but it's certainly an addition to his game that he can make that I think he is strongly trying to improve upon this offseason.
Fitz, first off, just to double check, you got your mic on mute. And what are your thoughts about this? Who do you think needs to improve and where?
Who do I think needs improvement? I mean, you look at the three guys that he listed, Singleton, Carter, and Olu, and I'm glad he asked this question because we sometimes fall into the trap of these guys are really good and that's what you're going to get all these years. And there's certainly improvement in pass protection for Nick Singleton, which every running back, especially a guy like Nick Singleton, who came in and was basically a guy that ran away from people and then, really improved his inside running, is going to continue to improve his inside running. But pass protection is like, he will leave Penn State and we'll still be talking about improving pass protection because that's what running backs need to do. It's very hard to do that. Abdul Carter have been saying it from the start. Like, he has been a guy that is really, really talented. Going to be a heck of a downfield linebacker, is already a heck of a downfield linebacker. We saw it at the end of the season. He got exposed in coverage a few times. So he's going to have to pick up, if we're doing Madden here, you got to pick up the awareness around him in terms of drops, in terms of his drop zones and where he needs to be. He can make up for so much with his athleticism, and that's great because you can be an eraser. You can do what Micah did. I think he's kind of fallen in line with that already. But at the same time, if you're in the right spot to begin with, you can do a lot more. I mean, that's turning knockdowns into interceptions. That's turning hurries into sacks and things like that. So just picking up on the little things around him, continuing to learning to play linebacker, which he, was further along than I think everybody thought he would be. But at the same time, there's still a lot of room for growth. And that's the most exciting thing about Abdul Carter is, like, he was good last year. He can be off the charts good because of these gifts that he has. So he's just got to pick that up from the mental side. Olu, stay healthy, man. Stay healthy. And he hasn't been injury prone or anything like that, but he's just so freaking good, man. I can't wait to see him play an entire season, get him back, continue working on that foot speed and things of that nature. And get him consistently playing beside someone that, they can work a tandem to. I mean, Landon's right beside him. JB Nelson's going to play at that left guard spot. You keep Olu healthy. He keeps continuing to improve on the things that, this guy was a top 10 pick. Like, yes, he does need to improve, but the margin of error is much larger or smaller. Nate, what am I doing here? Larger or smaller?
Smaller.
Okay, much smaller than those other guys because he's so freaking good already. But like, you look around and where you have stars, that's great. Like Chop Robinson, I think he's a phenomenal player. Continues to improve against the run and probably has reached that inception point where maybe he's a little underrated against the run right now because we talk so much about how great he is at pass rushing and how much better he needs to be. And Nick Tarburton not being there is a thing. Like, that's a thing that they're going to have to deal with in terms of playing against the run. But like, there are definitely things that these teams' stars can improve upon and get better at. And that, again, I go back to, that's exciting. That's you have not found a bunch of guys that have topped out and aren't going to get much better over the next couple of years.
I think even a veteran player, I'll start here because there's a couple things I think you hit on really well with those guys. But Curtis Jacobs, his ability to play through contact, play through trash in the box. He's much bigger this year. I think he's more physical this year. So, that consistency of having two guys that can star at will and having the ability to flex them wherever you want, not just to be good. That was the point. And Manny Diaz said that this spring is Curtis Jacobs didn't come back to be good. He came back to be great. So I'm interested to see his development in the box because I think he can do it. Like, there was, Fitz, you've pointed this out, much more comfortable out in space than he was in the box last year. But it was, there were flashes of when he did it, it was great. And I think the consistency there in terms of run defense against teams that can get to him, I think that's an area where he can take a step forward. Chop Robinson, tackles for loss and penetration, hand usage in the run game. This is the thing that bothers me when we talk about like draft nicks. They talk about, well, his hand usage in the run game isn't that good. And it's like, his hand usage is elite. Like, Chop Robinson, the violence and speed he has to use with his hands as a pass rusher, that also translates. It's just the consistency of application when it comes to his run defense and getting in the back and being disruptive. And then the last guy I would say, from the original list would be Olu becoming a star run blocker. Good run blocking last year. I think there were some things he could improve upon in terms of applying his play strength. Really, some of those, the thing that Rasheed Walker did really well is when he was good, he would make spectacular blocks. Olu is much more consistent, but does not necessarily have as many high-end, destroying people type of run blocks that you would expect from a top 10 player. And that's an area where I think that, Chuck Losey talked about flexibility, being able to win those leverage battles for a guy that is very tall. Those are the areas I think that those guys can take a step forward. And I expect that. Like this, as you pointed out, you expect those things to get better for these guys. Next question.
Good question, by the way.
That was a great question. Gulf Coast Lion. This is something we were going to talk about earlier because Nate actually did a story on Trey Wallace, but somebody asked, Gulf Coast Lion asked, can Trey Wallace be a deep threat in the passing game, or is he more of a possession receiver? Does he have the speed to beat elite defenses deep? If not, Wallace or Keandre Lambert-Smith, is Amari Evans the fallback in that particular subset of a skill set in the receiver position? So, Nate, what did Marcus Higgins say about what Trey Wallace can do for the Penn State receiver core?
He called it basketball on grass, and obviously he's kind of referring to the fact that Trey was an excellent high school basketball player, but no, that's what he has to do.
Yeah.
I don't know if he can be a deep threat, but he has to be a deep threat, if that makes sense. Right. I mean, I think that when you look back at last season, it was getting his feet wet for production, right? He had his first real action. He didn't really play as a true freshman all that much. But he led the team in drops according to PFF, right? I mean, and that's one that isn't, I don't think, necessarily a debatable stat for PFF.
And the number
PFF,
of
right?
targets. So the number of targets too is the concerning part, because you can have 7 drops on 120 targets, but when you have as many drops on a limited number of targets, being a third or a fourth option, that is a bit concerning.
He had 19 receptions on 35 targets with 5 drops.
Yeah.
Right. Which is not the worst thing in the world. But again, it was more than Parker Washington. It was more than Mitchell Tinsley. And going back to what we just talked about earlier, Singleton was second on the team in drops on only 17 targets.
17.
He had 4. So, so I'm not making a direct comparison to Malik Mega, but I do think that it's okay. These guys are athletic. These guys can do things that other players can't do in terms of their speed. Drew Aller, I just watched his interview with Adam Brenneman yesterday from earlier this month, and he talked about it. He said that his first 8 steps, right? Trey Wallace's first 8 steps are different. They're different from other guys. His stride is different. That's great. But if you got to come down with the ball, you got to be able to make contested catches. You got to be able to catch it when the opportunity is there. So that's, I think, a huge thing for him this season, is to be able to put those pieces together. But again, by all accounts, right, there's a lot of optimism, and it's not like hoping, wishing on a prayer. It seems well founded that he started to put those things together during spring practice.
And probably a big reason why James Franklin mentioned him and Keandre Lambert-Smith as the guys that were standing out. Fitz, you got a follow-up on this, and then I got another question for you, specifically from Beach Wine Guy in the chat.
My follow-up is, I don't know what Trey Wallace is. I think I know what he can be, but I still don't know. Nate mentioned the drops. 1 out of 7, I think, on his targets for drops is not great. But 4.4 guy, can run. But just in burst. I mean, his burst is so good. I imagine his short shuttle is very good. I imagine, the vertical, we've seen it in videos and stuff like that. Like, physically and athletically, they don't come much better than Harrison Wallace. He's just got to turn that corner and get there. And whether he's your go route guy, your 50-50 ball guy, which is obviously a misnomer there. But I don't know what he is yet. He can be something, but he's all potential right now to me.
Yeah, he's, at least the way I understand it and the way I've tried to study this, is, in that position he's been playing in the Penn State offense in the blue-white game, he's got to be that guy that gets you those deep targets, because if you're on the backside of the formation and you've got all of your talent over in the field, and that's where a lot of these things are determined of where you are between the hashes. He's going to get a lot of single coverage. So he's got to be, and that's the question of like the misnomer here might be possession guy. You might think of a guy that goes up and get those contested catches, but really the role, it feels like on the backside where Keandre Lambert-Smith operated for Penn State for the majority of last year, that is the big play position. Like you're going to get single coverage. The safeties are going to shade over towards the primary area of target. So you've got to be able to balance the field. You've got to make them pay for that. And I think that's kind of his role in the offense. Whether he can do it, I think everyone's pointed out to the things that he, are the questions around that. So Beach Wine Guy asks Fitz, do you think the staff will push for another quarterback or hold off till next year? They talk about two, but really that has kind of seemed to dissipate lately, Fitz.
No, I don't think they're going to go after another quarterback. I think they're pretty satisfied with Gronkmeyer. He's pretty good. So I don't see that one happening. Hold off until next year, see what's out there. We saw Malik Washington at the Elite 11. He's a guy that I think will emerge as a legitimate target for Penn State. You never know with those in-region early offers, but he seems like a guy that can certainly run the show here. Gronkmeyer, impressive showing at the Elite 11. Ended up in the final Elite 11, of course. I don't know if we've talked about this. I don't even remember if we talked about this on the recruiting show the other day. But really impressive showing. I can't say enough about like how he's handled himself over the last couple of weeks, because there's a lot going to it. I mean, there was a lot of interesting responses to him being selected to the Elite 11 at that camp, like politics, just committed to Penn State, we're in State College, all that kind of stuff. And he goes out and shows it. And, he showed it over the people that he was competing against that day as well out in LA. So kudos to Gronkmeyer, but I think he's going to be the only one. And if you look at the makeup of this class, and it's going to be a very big class, there's still a lot of top targets out there. We talk about receiver, we talk about defensive line. That's where most of the scholarships are going to go to. I don't see a situation where they're going to, number one, have to turn away a top quarterback, to be the second quarterback in the class, and number two, find a spot where that scholarship would be allotted to the quarterback room. So I think you're about set there. Like, you never say never, especially at those positions with the way the portal is. But I think they're set with one quarterback, and I think they're perfectly fine with the one they got.
Eric Eisler, donate to the channel. Always appreciate that. If you had a question,
I like that question. Yeah.
If you've got one, throw it in the chat. I'll get it to you later. But Eric, thank you for the donation. Tip jar is always open if you want to donate to a super chat or super thanks afterwards on the show. I don't specifically know how all of that stuff works out because I'm always here on this side. But I know that there are people in the chat that can help you out if you wanted to donate to the channel. Always appreciated. Not I don't want to say not necessary because you never know. But always appreciated.
Hey, T. Frank, by the way, before we get on, 8 of 13 games last year for Trey Wallace with 0 or 1 catch. He's going to have to be more productive. I know it's a different role, but going to have to be more productive, more dynamic. And on a bunch of those were 4 yards, 8 yards, 7-yard games. So I think he can do it, absolutely, but more consistency. Sorry, my brain was stuck on that one. I wasn't going to be able to move to the next one. So sorry about that.
It's funny you mention it, Fitz, though, because I looked at the same stat and said 11 out of 13 games he had at least 1 reception.
Okay.
And I looked at it and I said in 4 games he had a reception of 25 yards or more. So, looking at it from a lot of different ways with Trey Wallace. He's Schrodinger's receiver. He's whatever you want him to be.
Right now, I mean, that's the beauty of preseason college football. We love it.
Let's get to the next question. I like this question. It's kind of a fun offseason question. Nate, what team that is a non-Big Ten team but could potentially be Penn State's regular basis rival? If you could just pick any player. Sorry, hold on 1 second. Here's the fried brain.
Yep.
Any team in the country that isn't a Big Ten team that you could just pick to be Penn State's protected rival, who would it be? Poncho570 says he loved Notre Dame, fan bases, good football, and lots of money to make by putting those two teams together on television. Who are you thinking in terms of Penn State's protected rival in this imaginary situation?
Southern Cal.
There you go. It's not even a stretch anymore.
It's not a stretch anymore, and I would love it. I like both of those Rose Bowls were awesome. Certainly not the outcome that Penn State fans wanted, but Southern California, I'm never going to turn it down. If there was a second choice that actually fits the criteria of the question, I'd pick Texas.
Interesting.
I want to see what they're about. I don't know. It's just a program that I think is interesting compared to Penn State.
The volatility of Texas and the kind of the steady hand of Penn State, that'd be interesting. Fitz, do you have somebody top of mind that you think from, whatever perspective you think would make sense?
Wasn't even listening. Sorry. I was Eric, who generously donated. Was asking a question about a recruit, and I needed to do some research there. So I just,
okay.
I did not listen to anything that you guys just said. So
okay. So let me go.
Yeah.
You do your research on that question. We'll get to that here in a second. I'm going to go with Clemson because, and Fitz, you know way more about this than I do, but just in general, when I'm listening to recruits and I'm listening to people describe the two programs and kind of the competition they have for certain, good recruits, 4-star and above, I think there is a natural level rivalry there. And then to see how it happens on the field, I think would be interesting because here's the thing about Clemson. The other thing I want to really understate here. I hate their offense. I think their offense is basic as everything. So like when I see these elite athletes, especially quarterbacks that go to Clemson, they're like, I'm going to go to Clemson and I'm going to go to the league. And it's like, they're not really, I don't feel like that offense helps you accentuate like, hey, I'm an NFL quarterback. Now they have NFL talent that is at the quarterback position there, but I've never felt like that offense really accentuates a really good quarterback. And I don't know, just some of the dynamics of the two teams, their personalities, I feel like they're similar in a lot of ways from a program building perspective. I think they would be good natural rivals, and it also would be a chance for Penn State to go up against yet another top 5 team. So why not? They're used to it at this point. Fitz, here's the question from Eric on screen. Any idea why Dylan Dunthanen from Damascus, Maryland, was completely overlooked by PSU and ever a Power 5 school? And then he lists his abilities. So what do you have here?
I did a little research. He's going to Albany this year. Okay. And by the way, Damascus has put him out, over the years. You look at beyond Brian Bressie, like Jake Funk is in the NFL right now, doing a heck of a job. Went to Maryland. He was a guy that was overlooked in his recruiting process too. So certainly can make that jump, from that school. 6'3", 230. The numbers I have on him are much different than that. 4'6". My numbers are not that as well. And running for 200 yards a game in a hobby. People hate to hear it, but stats really don't mean anything. Like that's not what college recruiters are looking at. They're not looking at stats. They're not looking at how many yards a game you can grid for it. It's great to put it on a release when you sign the kid. But at the same time, like there are so many variables that go into getting those stats, especially for running backs, that they just don't matter. So I think that, he's not as big, he's not as fast as he's listed there, or at least the numbers that I have, which are, I think 2022. I mean, it's one of those things where guys are going to get overlooked, and we've seen it in the past. You can make the NFL from any level. You can make the NFL from Albany, and hopefully this kid does it. I looked up some things real quick, and seems like a kid worth rooting for. But it's just not always what it seems when you're talking about legitimate scouting. Like the question is, how does Penn State and every other Power 5 school overlook it? I mean, that's a pretty big body of work right there. There's a lot of Power 5 schools that are always looking for athletes to make the roster better. And it's just one of those things. It's where he landed. So all the best to him, but I don't have an answer other than maybe some of those things are a little bit higher or lower than they should be.
Unless we get another question in the chat, this is going to be our last question of the show today. BWV5014 asks, for Nate Bauer, the PGA Live Golf merger would be equivalent to what in college sports? Bonus question, which Big Ten college football coach do you think is best at golf, and are you better than that Big Ten coach?
Wow. Okay. Yeah, this one's different. I believe PGA and Live Golf merger would be the equivalent to Alabama and Texas A&M combining coaching staffs and programs. Does that make sense?
Did you do that off the top of your head? Because that's honestly not bad.
Yeah,
I did do it off the top of my head. I did. But that's kind of what it feels like. Which Big Ten college football coach is the best at? I have no idea. I don't. Right?
You don't golf with any of them?
Not yet. I mean, certainly there's still time, but no, I am not aware of any Big Ten coaches having a reputation as being good golfers. And I would probably lose. I'm not very good right now. I'm a bad golfer currently. It's not good.
How is that possible? Like, it's not like riding a bike? Because you're good at golf and you golf quite a bit historically. So, like, is it just a purely like extreme rust situation, or is there a degradation in talent?
Yeah, no, talent degrades for sure. It does not. It's not as maintained. You know, if you I don't know, this is stupid, but like if you don't do crossword puzzles for forever and then get back into it, you're not going to be as sharp doing it as you were previously when you do it on a consistent daily basis. So with something that's a fine motor skill in a lot of ways that uses your full body and those fine motor skills, it's hard. And Rick, the handicap is 8.7 right now.
From the live golf question and PGA, is the disillusion what's the word? Wow, words are not good right now. The disintegration is the word I wanted to say. The disintegration of the NCAA as an enforcing body of the college football, is that equivalent to the live golf merger of basically the NCAA going away with NIL? Is that, or is that not even unprecedented enough? Because I was going to say the Big Ten Pac-12 merger is kind of the thing that's about to happen, but then we've had conferences merge for 50 years at this point.
Yeah, but you have to. The whole point of this, at least from the public perception, is that you have to deeply resent each other.
Ah, okay.
And in college football, Texas A&M and Alabama, I feel like are the closest to that. So, Anyway, interesting question.
Well, that petered out. That's the end of the show. Fitz, save us.
I think Matt Rule probably is maybe your best golfer. I don't know. He was a pro coach, so like that's the thing. Like you look at the college coaches, and these guys are wound. Some of them wound way too tight to golf. PJ Fleck, I don't think would be a very good golfer. Harbaugh, I know he spent some time in the pros, and he's probably could be in that mix, but I don't see him sitting still for 18 holes, staying on the same course for 18 holes. But all these guys are mostly college guys, and those college guys don't have the time that those pro guys have. And they also don't have the patience probably for, and this is something that I heard about my father. My father was a really good athlete, but he tried to play golf and he wasn't good at it right away. So he said no golf like that. I feel like there's a lot of these guys, these college coaches who are really good at everything that they do. They pick it up and golf is stupid. That's kind of where we're at with that. So, but Matt Rule coaching the pros, a quick Google search says he's been on a golf course. So I'm going to go with Matt Rule.
I think Nick Saban is a pretty good golfer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I think
now that he retired, I know that he plays a lot, but
but like, could you see Pat Fitzgerald playing golf? Like,
no, that's a good point.
Maybe like an out. No, we're not even going to get it. But.
Guys, we got to get going. So thank you so much for your time today. Been a fun, laid back show. Appreciate all of your efforts, and everybody in the chat. Thank you so much as well. We're going to call that for the show today. So make sure you subscribe to Blue Whale Illustrated here on YouTube, because we got a lot of stuff coming up today, tomorrow, and the day after. There's a lot of things happening here in June, so subscribe, blueillustrated.com. You can sign up for a monthly subscription or a year subscription. I think the year is vastly worth your money. And, of course, it's totally free to do it here on YouTube. I'm Thomas Reinhart, Nate Bauer, Sean Fitz. We'll get out of here. We'll talk to you later.